Right. So, good morning, everyone. Cheers from ReThink office in Kiev, Ukraine. We are delighted that so many of you, hundreds of you, registered for today's webinar on circular design. So, good morning, everyone. Cheers from ReThink office in Kiev, Ukraine. Yeah, the audio is doubling from the YouTube. I apologize. Yes, we are delighted that so many of you have registered to participate in this webinar in August, when everyone is willing to go to the sea, to the beach, and have vacation. But still, hundreds of you have registered, and thank you for that. We really think that this topic is super important today because, as European Commission says in their recent Circular Economy Action Plan, nearly 80% of environmental impact of any product or material is being determined on the design phase. So it's extremely important to talk about circular design. How can we design in a more sustainable and resilient way? Today we will have Douwe Joustra as our keynote speaker. But first of all, I would like to give the floor, or to give the screen in this case, to His Excellency, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to Ukraine, Mr. Janus de Mol. Alsjeblieft.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me. It is a pleasure for me to be here today, and I prepared a short note, so we'll make a presentation there. One of the interesting things is that our prosperity, security, and health is actually the result of our lifestyle. Healthy living is not only about sports, it is about the food that we eat, about the goods that we buy, the waste that we produce, and the resources that we use in the environment in which we live. And that we, of course, need to preserve for our children and grandchildren. To be honest, these were actually the first lines of a speech that I gave for a seminar on circular agriculture. But I think, and that was here in Kiev, but that was before COVID. But the content is still valid and perhaps even more true than ever before. Some 10 years ago, if you spoke about circular economy and circular or sustainable design, people had hardly heard of it. Nowadays, it is a hot topic, and we constantly see more and more of it around us. The Dutch Design Week in Eindhoven had an embassy of circularity in 2018 and an embassy of sustainable design in 2019. And personally, as an ambassador, I would have loved to be the ambassador of that circular embassy. So yes, we have climate change, depletion of natural resources, urbanization, and increasing use of technology in our lives. And where is all this leading to? And how can we shape our society around these things in a positive, meaningful way? And how can businesses, designers, and consumers actually make a difference? And what does the transition to sustainability actually look like? To give answers to all these questions, first of all, we need to understand a little bit what it is exactly is sustainable design. And most people think of it as products that are designed with materials that have been or can be recycled. But there are also people for whom it is much more than that. And it's all about transforming into a new way of thinking. It is about rethinking. It is about reusing. It is about reuniting. And a lot of re's actually. For me, as an average person, sustainable design is about meeting the needs of the present without compromising the needs and possibilities of future generations. And it is very important that not only designers, but also the government, industry, and usual citizens actually realize that we have a role to play in this, and that we make a difference in moving this forward and getting us to a better future for everyone. And what is even more important is that we need to act together to achieve the amount of change that we need to tackle the challenges of our times. So ideally, we focus on a long-term perspective, but we should not forget about short-term successes. And the webinar that we are having actually today is, in my view, a small success and a step forward, as it gives us the opportunity to reconnect, to discuss, exchange ideas, share insights and expertise, not only with the acknowledged experts, but also with the general public. Our collective brain power can be used for resourcing, revaluing, co-creation, and a lot of other re's again. I personally believe that all these small bits truly matter. And therefore, I hope that the knowledge that you will receive today and that you're going to bring in will refresh and re-energize you even more in the realization of sustainability ambitions. So I will leave it for this moment. I would like to thank you for joining. I wish you all the best. And I hope that you understand that the Netherlands can be a partner in this. Take care.
Thanks so much, indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Yeah, so just not to delay you anymore, I would like to give the screen to Douwe and your slides. Thank you very much again for joining us, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's always strange to do a presentation for people you do not see. I see just the panelists on my screen and a big picture of myself. But it's an honor to be part of this webinar. And I would like to take you along in some of the thinking about circular economy, circular design, and some reflection on what is happening now in the COVID crisis. And let me start with the COVID crisis. And when it's right, my screen should, go. Yeah, there it is. Through the one of the effects of the whole COVID crisis is that we are now going into a global recession, and this recession is going in a pace that we haven't seen before in history, unless there were wars. But the decline of the economies is enormous at the moment. And I've worked quite a long time in the fashion industry in the recent years, and I saw that the whole fashion industry is not capable to cope with such a recession at the moment. So there is no resilience at all in such an industry. What happened? Well, first, orders were cancelled from one day on the other next day. Orders were cancelled all over the world. So in Bangladesh, India, Vietnam, the producing countries, all the producers had problems because the Western brands canceled their orders and stopped even their payments. That makes a problem, because that means that the workers cannot be paid. So the real economical victims of the COVID crisis are probably the workers, the people who do the production of fashion, clothing. But this is just an example. It is in other industries, we saw the same happening. And what you see immediately is that solidarity fails when there is an extreme situation. Every company, every Western company, every investor first chooses to save himself or herself. So that brings the problems back to the producing countries. And I had connections with a couple of the producers in Bangladesh, and then all of a sudden you see this kind of images coming through WhatsApp of people who try to keep their business going. This guy, Mostavic Udin, has a company with 2,000 workers, and he is trying day by day to get the investments to keep his 2,000 people working, pay them over the last couple of months. But it is a disaster. So, can we solve that? Well, I don't know. But what I see is that it is all about responsibility. Do we take any responsibility except for ourselves? That is one of the issues within circular economy, that we need to be realizing ourselves that we are in the old regime, trying to keep it going as well as it can, with a lot of focus on the optimization of the producing system and the system of sales. And this optimization has been, well, a priority for everybody at the moment. But what we see now, that all of a sudden we are in a situation of destabilization and chaos. So the question is, what can we do? How can we become more resilient in such an industry? Well, at least we should look more to the new regime. We should work on the experimentation, acceleration, and emergence. And that is where the focus should be. But in general, that's not what is happening. The question is, how can we redesign, and how can we build a resilient system? Well, let me take you along a little bit outside of the economy thinking. When you look at the word resilience, it comes from ecology. It stems from ecology. And there we know that ecology, natural systems can be very resilient when they have a lot of diversity. Diversity is the key to resilience. And I would say one of the domains that we have to develop in the oncoming period is eco-mimicry. How can we use ecology as an inspiration for the economy? And we will start the Eco-Mimicry Institute next month here in the Netherlands. So I think that circular economy creates resilient systems. But the question is, of course, how do we do that? Once again, the forest. It is about diversity. It is about products that last, the trees, and products that flow. The one-day fly, that's also somewhere in this picture, but you cannot see it. And that's what we have in our economy also. We have products that last and we have products that flow. And these need different approaches on design. So rethinking the business is also redesigning the business. And as the ambassador already said, the words are often around. But let's think about the most important word, that is realization, which is the activity that we need to do. So rethink and redesign. First is that we need to create more diversity. And then the question is, what is diversity? On what diversity are we talking about? And I'll take the example of fashion, but it's just an example. The question is fashion, for instance, about diversity? Well, every professional in the fashion industry will say, yes, of course, it is about diversity. Take a look around. We have beautiful products, and our colors are special, our fitting is special, our design is special. So on the level of products, we have quite a lot of diversity. But the question is, will the diversity in products bring more resilience in the system? Because I think that we need more diversity on a systems level. And when you just talk about diversity on product level, then you are talking about what I call shallow circular economy. And shallow, well, is good, but not enough. So we need more diversity in the business models. Go a step deeper. We need to go to the business models to gain more deep circular economy. Because resilience is what we need. The COVID crisis is just one example of a crisis that comes to us, but as you already heard in the first words of the ambassador, we are looking at quite a lot of huge problems in the oncoming decades, on resources, on climate change, on equality, etc. Resilience is needed. So we need to rethink business models. And there we can use the power of service design. Because I think that it is very important to have a diversity in business models in every industry, in every business. And every existing company should rethink the way they do business now, and you can use the power of service design. And I will take you through a couple of steps that could be taken to start this design process. I will not specifically go deep into the design process itself, because that we can do later, or you can find your information otherwise. But first step is always, from a circular perspective, to analyze your performance. What are you really delivering? And I'll have a couple of, well-known examples. This is the office of the architect Thomas Rau, and it does look like a normal office, more or less, beautiful. But it is completely, it was the first circular office in the world. It is completely service-based. So the furniture is used for work or storage, comfortable seating, good light on the table. So the architects are responsible for their architectural work, and all the companies that delivered the stuff, including the flooring, are responsible for their products and the way they operate. And the architects just pay a service fee for using all these materials. Another one is, when you look at a building, of course we have a lot of design issues when a building is being designed. But this building, the headquarters of one of the energy companies in the Netherlands, Alliander, is built as a resource warehouse. You can take it apart completely and use all the parts again if you want to rebuild or renew the building. We see more and more companies in the office furniture section who deliver seating as a service. They do not sell their chairs anymore, but they deliver seating as a service. And of course, the example of Philips is known by now all over the world. Light as a service, pay per lux. Because you really have to think about, when you deliver a service, is what is the financial element of the service? How can you pay for the presentation or the performance that you deliver? By the way, the service economy is growing enormously fast. At least, let me say, in our situation here in the Netherlands, but I would say in all Western economies and probably other economies also, the service economy is growing enormously. And you can see it quite easily here on the street. When you go out in Amsterdam around 7 o'clock in the evening, you will see the guys who deliver on the bicycle food all over the city. Well, let's say 3-4 years ago, it was an incidental pizza courier riding around. And nowadays they come from all corners and are delivering almost house to house food. This is a service growth. And the economy is growing in the service domain very, very hard. And why is that? Well, my opinion it is because we are at a level that products almost all have a good quality, the same quality, and can do the same things. But the difference for the customer is in the service. How easy can they use it? How easy can it be performed? And how, well, good it is for me as a person, as a consumer, to use it. And we know the example of Xerox already from the 1990s. They changed their business model from selling photocopy machines to delivering performance, and you pay per copy. And almost all copy machines, photocopy machines, are still owned by the producer and are not sold to the consumer or the organization that use it. So the companies keep management of their stuff, of their products. So performance, that's what it's all about. Then the question is, then it is, the next question is, can you ask the right question? And I'll use the example of the drill. What does the consumer want? Do they want a drill, or do they really want to have a hole in the wall? Well, I, as a consumer, I need a hole in the wall. The only way I can do that up till now is buy a drill machine. But the drill is, by me, it's only used, and we know that from research, about 10 minutes over its lifetime in real drilling. So it's obsolete, more or less, because for the hole I need 2 seconds, and then I have the hole in the wall. So what are you going to deliver? Are you going to deliver more and more and more machines? Or are you going to deliver a service to get the hole? Hennis, je moet even op mute. So the real issue is, what is the question? And the real issue is, how can we identify the real key issues? I think it's nonsense to have a focus on products when you look from a circular perspective. The products in general are pretty good. I have a part in the audience who wants to take part in the whole discussion. So that's why you see me moving a little bit. But he doesn't know too much about circular economy, but he doesn't doesn't have a product focus either. He wants to have the service of attention. So the nonsense in circular economy is often that we have a focus just on the product. And then we come into the discussion about waste issues and about recycling issues, etc. But that's the end of circular economy. We need to rethink and think about how can we have a focus on the real thing. Of course, the product and the way we have our economy organized by now makes that there is an enormous economical benefit in having a product focus. But the crisis nowadays shows us that the product focus is maybe not the smartest focus. What makes sense is user and service development. And please, please, please ask the right questions. Try to find what is the real process that we are working on. How can we make it an internal process? How can we create a process that connects our companies better to our customers, not the consumer, but the customer on the long term? And how can we do that together with the partners in the whole production chain? Which brings us to step 4, creating an overview. And of course, there are many different kind of business models to think about. And these are just a couple of examples. The 5 basic circular business models. It is about how can we create and use circular resources? How can we do resource and reuse far more better? It's a design issue, by the way, on the product level. How can we create extension of product life? How can we create sharing platforms? To give the example of the drill again, why not a drill in your street? There's one drill in the street, and the chance that you all in the street you have to use the drill at the same moment is not that big, and one drill will do the service. And change your business to product as a service. We see it happening everywhere. As I said about food, you see it in the Netherlands now with bicycles, you see it with cars, car sharing, but also new lease models for cars, the product as a service. Which brings us to step 5, which is a very interesting part of the design process. How can we identify the needs and the hidden needs of the customer? That means that you have to look into what is the customer really doing? What do they really want? How can I address these needs and the hidden needs in a right way? And if you are able to connect to the hidden needs of the customer, you will have a long-term connection with the customer. That's the basis for a long-term connection. And that's for me the most important thing of circular economy. Through these performance-based contracting, you will have a long-term connection with the customer, which makes is beneficial for the existence of your company also. Again, it's the question that you ask. What does the customer need? Does he need a drill, or she need a hole in the wall? That's the key question that you can always ask when you are working on circular economy. Do they need a drill, or do they need a hole? And of course, in step 6, you need to see who the partners are that you need to collaborate with. The collaboration, you cannot do a service model by your own. You're not a producer, you're just a service provider. So you need the producers, you need stable producers, you need producers that bring the right quality, etc. So collaboration is also taking responsibility, co-responsibility. And that's why I don't understand the Western brands letting the producers in countries like India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, well, let them go, because in the end they will need them again. So collaboration is also about co-responsibility and is about consistency on the long term. So that's all beautiful, but then step 7 comes, the phase of ideation. How can we create new ways to work in our company? And that is a difficult process because then you need different capacities of people. You need the conditions for change. You need an overview of all the conditions that you need to address to be able to change. First, you need to have a good idea about what the change would be. Then you need to see whether there are new investments needed. You need new regulations. You need whatever. And you need to connect in a new way to the customer, of course. And that's more or less an easy process. Just identify it and do it. And everybody says, yeah, but the consumer doesn't ask for it. No, the consumer didn't ask for anything, almost. No one of us asked for an iPad, but Apple produced it, showed us that it would be a very good thing, and it connected to our needs, communication and hidden needs. Can I do it everywhere? Identify it and do it, and the consumer will follow. If you have a good idea, a good service, the consumer will follow. This is, by the way, an economical theory called mechanism design, which won already in 2007, I think, the Nobel Prize for Economy. It's not just the asking, the marketing, and the way you can identify the questions of the consumers, the needs, but you can also create the conditions of bringing new business models, bringing new ways to connect to their hidden needs. And that brings, of course, an economic perspective. And once again, one of the conditions is, of course, that it is a chain effort. You cannot do it alone. You have your partners in your production chain. From the resource to the customer, it's a long way with a lot of partners, and you need to be working together. So this was a little bit about why, a little bit about the how, and a little bit about the what. But on the how, just one remark. Though I'm a consultant, I would say stay away from the consultants. Start to design, start your own design lab in the company, and find the people in your company with the capacities to bring creativity, who have business intelligence and have market knowledge, and who basically have an entrepreneurial spirit, and they are in your company. And it's not always the CEO. The CEO is a manager, not always an entrepreneur. The entrepreneurs are in the company and often quite close to the customer. And then you need probably a capable facilitator, but really start in the company your own design lab to see what the possibilities are for circular economy. Steve Jobs brought us how a great example on how to do it and to be a successful entrepreneur. He invented the idea of the iPad. He created the iPad, made a company, bring them into the market, and now in every household we have 5 or 6 of these things. But in the key of his thinking was be creative, understand what your customer wants, and just do it. So that's basically my storyline. Just a little bit about myself. I try to be a coach to the future. I am a coach to the future. I try to make sense in business facilitation, helping to implement circular economy in all kinds of different situations. And I did it with companies, with governments, with cities, etc. It's an interesting process. It's sometimes a difficult process, but it's always an inspiring process. So thank you very much for your attention, and let's get into some discussion. So I will give the floor back to our facilitator. Thanks.
Yes, Douwe, and thank you very much for keeping it very short and precise. Well, we have, I guess, too many questions to reply to all of them, but I would like to react and bring up some of the comments from the chat we're having right now, and especially the one which I find important comes from Javier Dominguez, and he says that I see the danger in the approach because the price of the service has not been mentioned. And of course, that brings me to, well, meaning that service economy could be more expensive for the end consumer as the product-focused economy. And that brings me to the discussion we had in the first webinar with Anders Wijkman, when he was mentioning the necessary shift in our taxation systems, moving away from high taxes on labor, allowing people to conduct more services, and putting more emphasis on taxing nature and finite resources. So what would be your answer to this?
Yeah, it's a strange issue. Let me first give a personal reflection. I thought the same. Service is expensive, and then a couple of guys here in the Netherlands started bicycles as a service. So you pay every month a fee, and you get a bicycle, and when there's something wrong, they repair it, etc. And it costs, well, let's say 20 euros a month or something like that. I'm not sure, but maybe a little bit less, but 20. So as a old linear grown consumer, I started calculating immediately. Okay, 20 euros a month, that's 240 euros a year, that's 2 years, that's 480, 3 years, that's, oh, so I can buy a new bicycle every 3 years. That's much cheaper. So my generation doesn't even think about having a bicycle on a service basis because we think it's too expensive. But nowadays you see them all over the place, the bicycles with the blue tire. You can recognize them in Amsterdam, Eindhoven, wherever you are in the Netherlands. And to my surprise, it are students who are using it, this model. Not because it's expensive, no, because it's easy. Because they don't have to go to the bicycle repair shop when there's something wrong. They just put it on their phone and someone comes to repair the bicycle. So the easiness has a price that young generations are willing to pay, and the experienced, the linear economy people are hesitating to pay. That's one phenomena. There is always a group, a huge group, that will step into this new way of servicing. And you see it in the photocopy machine industry, where they started doing it in the 1990s without any discussion. It happened and it works. And of course, there are some conditions that would be very beneficial for such a model. And one of the conditions is the change in the tax system, as Anders Wijkman already said. We have an initiative that is called X-Tax, a tax shift idea, which means that taxing, nowadays, taxes are mostly tax on labor. So you and I pay quite a lot of tax every month, every year, based on our income. And there is almost no tax on use of resources. So if you could shift that around and make the shift from taxing labor to taxing materials, resources, externalities, etc., then labor would become much, much cheaper, and products would become more expensive, but the balance would be there. So in the end, it would not change the price too much. But it has a couple of advantages. Service becomes cheaper because, well, salaries become cheaper. The need of having good management of all the products and all the materials becomes much, much higher because it has a higher price. And that's an economical system. Then companies will take care of their products and materials. So yes, of course, service is often something you have to pay for. But let's remember, it's also a service that you get. And we are not used too much yet to paying for service, but we are more and more prepared to pay for service.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Another reaction, a lot of products are consumed in developed countries. If we are to look at the circular economy like slow fashion, it would likely result in increasing amounts of unemployment in developing countries. How can we address this simultaneously? Yeah, so basically that's the question. How can we address simultaneously?
Yeah, well, one of the key questions then, of course, is slow fashion the answer from a circular perspective? Or, as I said in the beginning of my presentation, we have a difference between products that flow and products that last and products that flow. And when you start designing in the fashion industry on the high-speed fashion, then you at least should design them to be able to flow, which means that the reuse and the repair, the recycling on a highest possible level should be as easy as possible. So I'm not sure that the one solution for fashion is that everything should be slow fashion. But we need new ways of creating that market and looking at the products. And yes, there will be an effect on producing countries. I am not sure whether we can consistently go on producing as much as we do. And change will happen in every economy, whether it's a linear or circular economy. Change will happen. For instance, nowadays, well, no, in the fashion industry, for instance, production follows the lowest wages. So the lowest paying countries are the best to be producing. So you see now some African countries coming up because they have very low wages, so very low costs for production. So they are coming up to in the market. The question is, will we follow that model, or do we try to gain quality through collaboration, bring quality in the materials, bring quality in the production, pay the right prices, and pay the workers a livable wage. And these are issues that are not easily solved. But at least I would say to the workers in the producing industry, be entrepreneurial, try to find your own way, and look into what the consequences are on a social level also of changing systems in the fashion industry. Whether it's a circular or fashion or linear system, it will change.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, two questions from the same person, and they are quite different, I must say. First one, how to reduce use of plastic in Ukraine? Well, have you been to Ukraine?
No, sorry, no.
Okay, then you can just think of any country. So how to reduce the use of plastic in any country, and how to attract foreign investments to circular economy projects in COVID-19 pandemic terms.
On plastics, well, the easy answer is, from a circular perspective, is make the plastic performance-based. So don't sell it, don't give it away, but use it for bringing drinks from one place to another, or from bring the plastic as a service. So keep the ownership with the producers.
Does that mean that we should not have single-use plastics at all?
Well, for instance, or someone delivers the service of a single-use plastic that brings quality to the environment.
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer, whatever. But there has to be an added value. There needs to be an added value, because otherwise, on plastics, you come into the discussion, an environmental discussion. You should use less, and then we go to the consumer, and you should use less. That's working on the morale of people. That's working from the perspective of an ideology. What we try to do from a circular economy perspective is look from an economic perspective, how we can find the solution for such a problem. One of the issues behind the problem of plastics is that the individual consumer doesn't really know what to do with the plastics. They throw it away. They throw it away in the waste bin or on the street or whatever. So what we try to do is educate people to have better behavior, which is a very, very difficult way of changing the world, because you have to work with, I don't even know how many billion we are, but 7, 8?
Almost 8
billion. Then you have to address 8 billion people individually. I would say let's have a focus on the producers of the plastics, and teach and work with the producers of the plastics on systems that make it possible to have plastics not as an externality in and in the end in the oceans, but have it as a valuable material product that can deliver service, a performance, and keep them responsible for the performance. I don't like, for instance, we are discussing now in Europe extended producer responsibility, which means that we all probably in the end have to pay 10 cents more for a bottle or something like that, so that the producer can take a responsibility in the waste system. I think extended producer responsibility is not what we need in circular economy. What we need in circular economy is full producer responsibility. The producer makes it, the producer offers it, the producer gives us the performance, the producer takes the responsibility for the product, takes it back, uses it again, makes something else of it, cleans it, whatever they need to do, but it's a full producer responsibility. That's the step that we should create.
Yeah, exactly. And second question was how to attract foreign investments, or just investments, let's put it that way, just investments. In circular economy projects in COVID-19. I can imagine why a person is from Ukraine is asking about foreign investments, because within Ukrainian investors it's not that trendy to invest in circular economy project, because at this moment you never know if they will pay back or...
This is a general issue, of course. We saw it and see it in the Netherlands also. We have some major investors, institutional investors here in the Netherlands, who already 4 or 5 years ago said, we have millions and millions to invest in circular economy. So we all started bringing them ideas. And what happened was that no investment came, because they all used the same logic as they used for their old investment strategies. COVID-19 makes it even more difficult, because the risk level is growing for every investor in every situation. because what they've seen is that what I call the resilience of the economical system and the producers is not that big at the moment. So for investors, they feel as if it's very risky to step into new investments. This is not per se on circular economy. This is all over the place nowadays. I would say there are some guarantees in circular business models that take away quite some of the risks and show by stepping into the circular business model as an entrepreneur, you show that you see what is happening in the world, respond to it, and have the entrepreneurial spirit that is so important for every investor. And well, sorry, it's not easy. It's a very difficult issue at the moment everywhere. So I cannot give the silver bullet answer, just say this and then they will come. There are funds, there are investors. Investors are looking also into new ways of working on investments. Even the biggest investor in the world, BlackRock, already published a year ago a statement on the sustainability of their investments, at least how their investments could, well, sustain, could be sustainable. So the development is going on. Investors are just like us, people who are moving along, and the question is, can I find the right person in the investment community that can communicate with me on the same level on the business development?
Yeah, exactly. From my side, I can just add that there is no problem to attract investors once your product does make sense. If it's circular product, it's great, and we have some examples even in Ukraine in circular innovative products. For example, like glasses made out of coffee with yeah, all kinds of bio-based lenses, etc. Such projects, they basically attract a line of investors willing to invest in yeah, economy of scale and production of these glasses, etc. And that's a real case from Ukraine. So if your product does make sense for people and it's also sustainable and circular, there is so much money in the world right now, because we see that indices are growing in times when GDPs are falling. That's basically an unprecedented case of all times. Yes, still a lot of questions. Let's pick one from the Dutch context, as I understand. How can we integrate food, textile, lean and green, recycling, education, care, IT, and social domain all in one in Circular Valley Heerenveen? I think it's in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I know for sure it's in the Netherlands. And I'll be in a discussion on Monday with the group in Heerenveen, of working around Heerenveen. Well, it's a difficult question to answer because it's quite broad. All these different, let's say, industries bring them together. Also bring them together with local politics, local government. I would say, in general, this is the question about what are the conditions that you need to be able to develop circular economy on some level. And then you need to make a good analysis of conditions. And the first condition is, of course, bring people together. If you want to work in such a region, you would need to have people who are connected to the region, who are part of the actual economy in the region. Bring them together and find the shared interest, the shared values, and how collaborative value creation can be developed. What can the local government do to support these kind of initiatives? And to give you an example from what I saw in the fashion industry, there are a lot of social entrepreneurs now working in the fashion industry. For instance, the clothing library. 3 girls in Amsterdam, Lena, started a fashion library. At the same time, you say in the same city, an enormous pressure on the retail in the fashion industry. And they are having too much stock. They are having problems to get the customers in the right way, etc. And they don't know each other. So the social entrepreneurs do not have a right connection to the retailers, and the retailers do not even see the social entrepreneurs. And the city says, we want to be circular. Okay, city, you want to be circular, bring them together. See how they can facilitate each other. What can they learn from each other? What can they use from each other? And how can you facilitate this process of development of a new organization in your fashion industry on a local level? So find the conditions for change. That is what Heerenveen should try to do as a first step.
Yeah.
It's a general answer, sorry. On Monday, I will go into detail in there.
Of course, well, the answer must be similar to the question, so it's understandable. Now we have a more specific question. It comes right now in the chat, and I like it very much. Shouldn't we work on a new economy as well, meaning values and ideology? And what should we teach now to achieve circular economy later? I think that under teach, Geo Burggraaf means at schools.
Yeah, I know for sure. I can give a very long answer to this question, because there is a lot of knowledge connected to circular economy. That is a kind of basic need. You need to understand the laws of nature to understand how materials work, how materials come together, how they keep their value, etc. This is why I introduced recently the concept of eco-mimicry. First, let's learn from ecology. The ecological system is already for millions of years working on this earth. It has the possibility to use materials, to use nutrients, on and on and on. And we can learn quite a lot from ecology, but we need to see that we are not standing aside looking at ecology or nature. No, we have to understand, and that's a key issue in the education, is that we are part of the system. We are part of the natural system, and everything we do has an impact on the natural system. But we can also add value to the natural system. And the question for many of the educators is, how can we learn children, grown-ups, etc., to add value to the system? Because mainly our education from an environmental perspective is again about no, you should not do this, you should not do that. Be careful, watch out, etc. But we almost never discuss how can we add value to the ecological system. And in the next step, how can we add value in the economical system? So I'm very happy to discuss it again with Geo Burggraaf, and he knows to find me.
Yes, okay, that's easier. Now, to all participants, it's already 11 o'clock in Kiev, and yeah, it's 10 o'clock Central European time. And we understand if you leave, that's fine, because we said it will be for 1 hour. We can still take several questions because, as Douwe indicated, he still has some time, and there will be recording available and sent to all of you. So if you have some meetings or calls or simply work, thank you for participation. But we have still many people online with us, so we can continue with several questions, right, Douwe?
Yep, no
Yeah,
problem.
and we have two on tourism, and I will ask them together because they are, well, they are not similar, but they are on tourism. So as the global economy is going into recession, means that businesses may be reluctant to change their business models and invest in the transition to linear, from linear to circular. How can you build a business case for change at this difficult time that some industries are facing? For example, tourism. So how can tourism resist the crisis and rebuild itself to circular model? And another question is, how could small and micro businesses, for example, in rural tourism, take up and benefit from circular economy to add value to their business?
Yeah. Of course, it's difficult to change in such a recession period. But we also know that it's very difficult to continue what you did. The world has changed, so tourism will change. So if you try after a disaster to repair what it was, as it was, that's not the best idea. And taking the example from nature, when there has been a forest fire, nature doesn't restore the same thing again. It starts growing again. It starts developing again. And it will take maybe 10 years to have a new ecosystem that has a reasonable level of stability. So what every entrepreneur will feel is that protecting what was is something that you need to do. Of course, you cannot throw away everything that you have. But let's say the 80-20 rule is applicable here. So put about 80% of your energy in restoring as it was or as it is, keeping it going. But at least take 20% of your time and energy and intellectual power, entrepreneurial power, to rethink what you were doing and what the new situation is. Are there changes in the needs and the hidden needs of the customer? Yes, there are. People are hesitating to fly. And well, we don't know, maybe in a year everybody is flying again when the COVID problem has been solved, if we are able to solve it. But there are some fundamental changes. Another one is that you can see, for instance, what we learned during this period is that working from home, I'm sitting at home, many of the listeners are probably at home, is that the need of having offices all over the world is maybe not that basic as we thought it was, because ICT changed the world really fundamentally. And we are not, I'm not a specialist in tourism, but I think that the whole sector of tourism should rethink what they are doing. And I think that for small and medium enterprises and micro enterprises, there are beautiful chances, but do not have a focus on foreigners, but have a focus on your peers, Dutch entrepreneurs focus on Dutch people, French entrepreneurs focus on French people. When you are a micro or a small entrepreneur, there are chances enough on quality in tourism, and it's not in the quantity of flying as much as possible people to Turkey or Spain.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Please share best examples on your opinion of cradle to cradle in fashion.
That's a very specific question. Well, the best example is the cradle to cradle jeans gold certified that has been made for CNA. And they have a whole line of cradle to cradle products nowadays. That's the only real cradle to cradle large scale product in the fashion industry that I am aware of. But there are many initiatives that are not cradle to cradle certified, but maybe as well as in quality, and maybe some of them have an even better business model connected to it. But let's say the jeans, the cradle to cradle jeans of CNA is cradle to cradle gold certified, which is pretty high level of cradle to cradle quality.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Thank you. Well, now again, very global question, but still really relevant, as I think. Is this the biggest opportunity to redefine the world economic structure and introduce circular economy into organizations and change the policies to start countering climate change? Or have we missed the boat as most countries are turning to increase production from fossil fuels to revamp their economy?
Yeah. We're always too late, of course, because the disasters are already coming. Climate change is already going on, and many of us already can see it. And the COVID crisis helps a little bit to have chances for change, but don't overestimate it, because many people are working on restoration of what was and not on creating something new. So I hope that there will be enough attention in politics, investments, and entrepreneurial initiatives on new, better initiatives, new quality. But this is a long-term need. Well, let's say it started already in the 1960s with The Silent Spring of Rachel Carson, in the book, up till today, and probably in the oncoming 10 years, 20 years, we are still working on it, creating more change, going from fossil fuels to natural energy resources, clean resource, green energy, having far much better materials management. So yeah, I'm not sure whether everybody is open for discussion on it. I would say take initiatives, just do it, and don't discuss it too much. Don't make it an issue, because then you come into the discussions of ideology, and ideology tends to be something like discussions between churches, always difficult, always different, always know that everybody has its own truth, and ideology will not bring this world further in environmental spirit. What we need is entrepreneurial spirit and an economy that facilitates quality and value for all, meaning not just value for people, but also value for ecology. Sorry, this is again, there is no silver. I wish there were some silver bullets, but they are not there.
No.
And everybody should take the chance for change. As soon as you see it, take it. As soon as you feel that it's needed, do something, start it, find the right people in your company. And what I didn't say in my presentation is believe in the power of one. If you want to start change, believe in the power of one. You can be the one that brings the change or brings the first step to change. When Philip started working on circular economy, that was not because Philips had someone or a department, that innovation department, that all of a sudden found something new. No, because this one architect, Thomas Rau, asked one new question to Philips. Can I have light? Yes, which lamp do you want? No, I want your light. I need light. Yeah, but which lamp? No, I don't need your lamp, I need light. And you are the company that can create light. And then Philip started to understand that it can be a change of working. So the power of one really can facilitate change. And I would hope that everybody who is listening understands that you can be the one. Maybe in your family, maybe in your street, maybe in a company, maybe in politics, wherever you are. But always believe in the power of one.
Wow, that's fantastic. Douwe, and I think with this final remarks, well, let's call them like that, you have answered to many more questions that are left. And this is great also moment to end our webinar. We are already 15 minutes past 10. Yes, and we could make a deal that some other questions which are still there, you can answer in the written form afterwards. They can send answers to all our registered participants.
Yep.
We will be willing to do that, and if you have some spare time. On behalf of ReThink Ukraine and all the participants, I would like to thank you for your time and dedication and joining from the Netherlands today and contributing to a more circular world, more educated world, more connected world. Thanks a lot, and guys, we'll see you next time at our next webinar. Have a pleasant day and good luck to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.